Hey, what's going on, guys? How is everybody doing? So one of the biggest questions to come out of 1.2 for me is Snowtome Starsilver better or worse than Prototype Animus? It's certainly slightly different, but the question is it actually better? So today we're going to be taking a look at it. We're going to be doing all the calculations to see whether or not you should craft that Prototype Aminus or the Snow-Toned Starsilver. So before we actually go into the numbers, let's first take a look at what heroes you should be looking at if you're even deciding between the two. So on your screen here, of course, you will see the 6 Claymore users that we have access to in the game. And from these 6, I feel there are 2 characters that you should definitely be questioning which one you should be building. There are 2 that you might be, but overall, you're probably better with one over the other. And finally, of course, you have 2 that it's definitely not worth it to go with the Starsilver. So the 2 that you should definitely not even consider are Xinyan and Diluc. Both are elemental characters. So Diluc, you definitely want to build for pyro damage. And because of that, that physical damage bonus is not really going to be beneficial on him. You're going to want just the flat attack percent boost. Same thing with Xinyan. He's more of an elemental character. His skill is going to turn all his attacks into cryo damage. So getting that physical damage bonus is not going to help him at all. Now, the characters that I'm kind of on the fence about are Noelle and Beidou. Now, we could build these physical. However, from what I've seen, and honestly, I haven't played these 2 characters very much, if at all, they tend to be built more towards elemental damage. A lot of Noelle's damage comes from her burst, which of course does geo damage, and Beidou does a lot of electrical damage with her parry and her burst. So we could build these in terms of physical, but I have a feeling that it's not going to be worth it overall. However, we will take a look at these 2 to compare which one would be better if you were to build these as physical units. And lastly, of course, the 2 that you are most likely going to be questioning which one you should craft is going to be Xinyan and Razor. Razor most of all because, you know, Razor is my character, and that's seems to be why a lot of you are here. And I've really been talking about this weapon specifically for Razor. So he is the character we're going to focus on in this video. But of course, I will show a couple builds with Xinyan, Beidou, and Noelle just so we can see how they would perform with the Snow-Toned Starsilver. So now, if you aren't familiar with this tool, this is a DPS tool that I did highlight on my channel already. I will link that up in the corner there. So if you want to check out the further details of this tool, go right ahead. There's also a link there to the original Reddit post where you can find this tool yourself. I'll also link this tool down in the description below, of course. But basically here we can go ahead and build a whole bunch of different variations, and we can test them just like this. We don't have to actually build anything in game, which is super nice for testing purposes. So when we're looking at Razor, we're going to be looking at him across a spectrum of artifacts. So from his top tier absolute best build, we're looking at a 4-piece Gladiator set with stats that are going to be changing. We also have him with a 2-piece Glad, 2-piece Bloodstained Chivalry set. We have him with a 2-piece Bloodstained Chivalry and 2-piece Thunder Fury, just in case you're going for that Electro build, although that's not a recommended build, but just for testing purposes. We also have a 2-piece Glad, 2-piece Bloodstained Chivalry at 4 stars everything. The reason I'm going for this is because I feel like that's a much more reasonable comparison set for mid to early game players, especially if you haven't started farming 5-star artifacts yet. So just to test and see if 4-star versus 5-star makes any difference, those are the 2 set bonuses we're going with. And as I said, we will be doing different stat orientations in between all these artifact categories. We will also be taking a look at a similar build using Xinyan, Noelle, and Beidou just to see how their numbers stack up as well. Also, one last quick thing before we get into the numbers is that all of these substats, all the artifacts, they are built off my actual in-game Razor. I'm not going to be changing any of the substats just because substats are completely random, and honestly, if you wanted to figure out for your character specifically, you'd have to come in and plug it into this calculator. So to eliminate that as a variable, we're going to be keeping all the same stats across the board. The only thing that we will be changing is the main stat on artifacts and keeping that as max. And we are going to be comparing these stats against a level 77 Hilichurl, and this is where we're looking at and comparing this total DPS, because that is going to include the extra bonus hit from Prototype Aminus as well as Starsilver. So without further ado, let's hop right into it. And the first setup we are looking at is a timepiece with attack percent, a cup with physical damage, and a circlet with critical damage. This is the best setup in my opinion. Crit damage could become crit rate. It just depends on where your stats actually lie. But for this example, basically we're looking at attack percent and physical damage here on the cup. So looking at this prototype Aminus, we're getting about just over 6,200 DPS. And if we switched over to the Starsilver, we are getting an average just above 6,000. So with this current setup, even if we toggle the ability, we are still getting under that prototype Aminus. If we went and switched this up, so now our circlet is actually on attack, we are going to see Starsilver just under 6,100, prototype Aminus just above 6,100. So still, with this composition, prototype Aminus is still better. What if we took this physical damage cup though? What if we took this down to attack percent? So now we have 3 different attack pieces. Well, with prototype Aminus, we're looking at 5,200 average DPS. Star-tomed Starsilver actually goes up here. So what it looks like to me currently with this 4-piece Gladiator set is if you do not have a physical cup, it looks like Starsilver will be your go-to sword. However, given how we built these, if you have a physical damage cup here, prototype Aminus is going to be the one you want to go with, but it edges it out just barely. So the next setup we're going to be looking at is the same as my best in slot. The only difference here is that now we're off a 4-piece Gladiator set. Now we're on a 2-piece Gladiator set and a 2-piece Bloodstained Chivalry set. So for best in slot main stats with prototype Aminus, we're looking at 6,600, almost 6,700 DPS. We switch over to oh my god, that name is going to kill me. Snow-tomed Starsilver, looking at 6,400. So quite a big dip down, just slightly under if we toggle this ability. But I like to keep this off just because it's not 100% that we're going to be able to keep this up. So we can look at the two, but overall it is quite a bit lower. So we'll do the same thing here. What if we change this crit damage to attack percent, since attack percent is much easier to get? We're still looking with Star-tomed Starsilver down at 6,500. We go up to prototype Aminus. We still see it still edges it out. We're still having more of a benefit here from prototype Aminus. And my guess is if we switch this over to attack percentage, we're going to see the same thing as we did before. So with 55.5K for prototype Aminus, Starsilver pulling it out. So we're starting to see a little bit of a trend here that if your cup is not on physical damage, it looks like you may want to go for that Star-tomed Starsilver, but if you do have a physical damage cup, we have prototype Aminus. So let's continue on with the tests and see if this trend further continues. So the next setup here is a 2-piece Bloodstained Chivalry and 2-piece Thundering Fury. Now, as I said in the beginning of this video, I do not recommend this setup, but just for testing purposes, let's see how this comes out in the damage race. I've also set this up as electro damage here because we do have a little bit more of a physical damage boost from the Bloodstained Chivalry, and Star-tomed Starsilver will give us physical damage bonus. So since we're going a little bit split, we have an electro damage cup here. So with prototype Aminus, we're getting 4,500 average DPS, and if we turn that into the Starsilver, it's just barely edging it out. But if you remember, it was edging it out and we don't have that physical damage cup. So if we switch that over to a physical damage cup, what do we see? 5,900 just over prototype Aminus. We're going a little bit over, so we're still following that trend. What would happen if we took this crit, turned it into attack, this physical damage we kept as electro damage? Then what do we see? Prototype Aminus just over 4,500, Starsilver 4,600. So again, we're still following that trend where if you don't have a physical damage cup, you're still better off going with Star-tomed Starsilver. So now that we've figured that out, let's switch over to our 4-star set. So this is 4-star full Gladiators finale. Because this is kind of mid-tier, I have not built this for crit. This is specifically built with attack in mind. Now, what I'm assuming is even though these are 4-star artifacts, it's not going to change the stats very much. So Star-tomed Starsilver, 31K. Prototype Aminus, just over 32. But what we've noticed is that the difference between the two is actually shrinking quite a bit. What if we change this over to attack percent? 2,750. We switch over to Star-tome, 2,827. So not even 100 average DPS increase. Quite small. It's a little bit more if we toggle the ability, but what we've seen overall is that the numbers, the gap between the two has started to shrink the lower quality our artifacts are. Okay, so now moving on to Xinyan. Now obviously this is not going to be a perfect build because I'm literally taking my exact setup from Razor and just moving it on to Xinyan. But everything else can be the same. You know, her attack, her talent levels, basically, those could all be those levels. She could be level 90. She could have a level 90 weapon. We've literally just taken Razor's exact artifacts and move them onto Xinyan. So if we're looking to build her as a physical carry, right, we're going to put a physical cup on her. We're going to have crit damage, especially if we have her Constellation 2, because then her burst will be dealing 100% crits. Or it'll crit 100% of the time, and we have attack percent on her timepiece. So prototype Aminus, 6600 DPS, and if we go over Starsilver, we should see that it's lower than prototype Aminus, right? Because we have a physical cup on. But wait, what do we actually see? We actually see an increase in DPS. Now it's slight, but we do see an increase. Well, that's interesting. Why is that the case? What if we change this to attack? Does it do the same thing? Prototype Aminus 5357, Starsilver 5900, so a massive difference there. Well, that is just interesting. I wonder why that is. We'll discuss that later. Next up, we can take a look at Noelle here. Same thing, same stats. The only thing that we've done differently here is we put geo damage on her, because as I said, it is more likely that you're building her for geo damage. So with prototype Aminus, we're getting 75k, just over. With Starsilver, quite a bit more, in fact, 8100. That is a surprise. And I'm assuming we're going to see even more of a difference if we switch over to attack. 9700. We go down to prototype Aminus, 8900. So quite a big difference there. That is quite interesting. What if we go over to Beidou? Now, Beidou, let's say we're building her with a physical set, as we do have Gladiator's Finale on. What do we see here? Again, we have a physical cup, so we would assume that prototype Aminus would be the way to go, right? So we have 6300. Moving over Starsilver, it's very, very tight. Very tight. So why do we think that this is? Why on Razor is prototype Aminus the way to go if he has a physical cup, but every other character actually benefits from having Starsilver even if they have a physical cup? Well, basically what this all comes down to is because Razor's innate stat that he gets upon ascension is physical damage, basically what we're seeing here is diminishing returns. Because we're building up that physical damage stat so much when we build Starsilver, we're actually losing damage where we could be investing it into attack and actually getting more damage. So that's why with Xinyan, Noelle, and Beidou, we're actually seeing a boost in that damage because they don't have that innate stat of physical damage. So basically what this means for Razor specifically, if you don't have a physical damage cup, Starsilver will give you an increase in DPS and overall will be the better weapon. However, I don't recommend building Starsilver, and I'll tell you why. The reasoning is, in the short term, Starsilver is better. If you only have, 3 attack pieces, or let's just say you don't have that physical cup just yet, yes, it's going to perform better than prototype Aminus. The thing is that is short-term thinking. And because your resources are so valuable and because the prototypes are so hard to come across, I can't really recommend you going with Starsilver, because as you progress through the game and as you get closer to late game, prototype Aminus is going to become better. And as we saw, when you're in the early game, your stats, the difference between the two are actually pretty minimal. So the overall DPS you're losing by going with Starsilver just to get better damage overall in the early game is not worth it, in my opinion, than going over prototype Aminus, which will scale better in the late game, especially as you get those refinements. It's going to be doing a lot more damage. Now, when it comes to the other 3, let's talk about Xinyan first. I do think that if you're building Xinyan as a carry, Starsilver will be better on her overall than prototype Aminus, because as we saw, if you don't have that extra physical damage bonus that Razor has from his innate stats, overall it is going to scale higher than prototype Aminus. Now, moving on to Noelle and Beidou. The thing with these two, now, while the stats we looked at, it did look like Starsilver would actually be a benefit. I am not recommending Starsilver for these because you are not going to be building these with physical damage in mind. The things we did not take a look at were Noelle when she's using her burst, or Beidou when she's using her burst or skill parry. Now, if they're auto attacking, yes, you're going to see a benefit from using Starsilver, but because of the way that their bursts work and how they do elemental damage, Starsilver is overall going to pale in comparison between these two and overall will fall off from prototype Aminus. And honestly, for Noelle, if you're crafting weapon for her, she needs white blind, but for Beidou, prototype Aminus will be better for her. So guys, hopefully that answers the question, which Claymore is better, prototype Aminus or Starsilver? I'm a little bit disappointed. I thought Starsilver was going to be great moving forward, but it looks like really it's only going to be beneficial on Xinyan, and in my opinion, Xinyan overall, like, not the best Claymore hero you could build. She's not really the best in support, and she's not really the best in carry. She kind of just sits right in the middle, but if you are a big fan of Xinyan, you got yourself a pretty great new weapon, friend. But guys, that's all I got for today. Hopefully you did enjoy. If you want to see some more content from me just like this, you can head over to my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/xjazze, or if you want to support us right here on YouTube, you can click that red subscribe button, like the video if you liked it, and click that notification bell. That way you never miss a video. And of course, if you want to join our community over on Discord, link will be down in the description below. But guys, that's all I got for today. Hopefully you did enjoy, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Peace.